Hello everyone, welcome to 24 Karat Hangout. My name is Nankus and I have with me the amazing Auntie T.
Hello everyone.
So we'll be talking about self-esteem today. Okay, so Auntie T, what do you think is self-esteem?
I think in a simple way, how I would define self-esteem is a total evaluation or how a person sees him or herself, the amount of value a person places on him or herself.
Okay. Wow, that's a very brief and straight to the point response. I didn't even see it in that like. So do you think there is healthy self-esteem and unhealthy self-esteem?
Definitely yes. So when we talk about healthy self-esteem, one of the first things we hear about is when somebody places value on themselves.
Okay.
They know their self-worth. There are some things they wouldn't let anybody do to them because of the amount of value they've placed on themselves. And when you talk about healthy self-esteem, you're talking about striking a balance. So unhealthy self-esteem comes in two different extremes. You come with one extreme of low self-esteem where someone doesn't have value for him or herself. And then when you now talk about another extreme end where you see someone has very high self-esteem, even leading to the point of pride. You see some people lording over other people because they think they are better than everyone else. And then you see some people looking down on themselves because they think everyone else is better than they are. So if you really look at it, there needs to be a balance. So it's like striking a balance somewhere in the middle where you know your value, you're not lording it on other people. You know your value, you don't think every other person is better than you, but at least you know that you are worth something and you deserve the respect that you should have. So when we talk about self-esteem, we need to strike a balance in that aspect.
Okay. Well, that's amazing. So as a youth and teens coach and mentor, how do you think the lack of healthy self-esteem is affecting young people today?
I think it affects them in a whole lot of ways, especially looking at low self-esteem. So starting from the development of a child, we start from the adolescence phase, for example. There's a lot of physical changes that happens, and depending on the environment where they are exposed to. Some people are exposed to environments where it makes it easy for them to place value on themselves because they feel like, oh, I have what it takes for me to survive in this world. But for some other people, they get to a point where they think every other person is better than them. And then they are willing to let go of even the little value they have of themselves just to please other people. So you see there are some teenagers that are people pleasers. That's even at some point they are easily pressured by what their friends say, what the society thinks of them, and they now lead themselves to unhealthy choices in their lives. And then you meet some other teenagers where they now think they are better than everyone else. It's a common saying, people say teenagers are difficult to work with. They think they are rude. They think they are disrespectful. And sometimes that comes with an unbalanced self-esteem where they are trying to find an identity of themselves. So they, at so many points, need a form of accountability system, a form of system that can work with them through that growth process. Because they are not children, they don't see themselves as children, and they are not adults.
Yes.
So they are somewhere in the middle, and even they themselves, at some point, they are confused. You look at the church setting sometimes, some churches don't even have teens church. Some churches put teenagers in the adult church where they can't really understand what is going on. And you still cannot put these same teenagers in the children's church where they are with maybe 8, 7, 6 years old. They will be lost somewhere. So there's a space out there for teenagers where it is created for their own specifics, the kind of challenges they go through, walking them through that process. And it now becomes important for a young person to have a good self-esteem so that they can navigate through life's choices as they are beginning to form their own personality, beginning to understand who they are and what they can do with what God has given to them.
Wow, thank you so much for that. I mean, it's even a lot for me right now. And so, how would you say that building a healthy self-esteem was for you when you were still coming up in your teenagers or in your early adolescence? And do you think it's any different with what we experience now? Do you think like the face, that teen and young adult face, do you think it's different from what it was in your days and what it is now, and how important a healthy self-esteem was then and now?
I would not say it's different. So I'm not one of the people that thinks, oh, my generation was better than this generation. I just think there are peculiarities.
Oh,
So in my own generation, maybe starting from the fact that I would say I began to understand what it meant to be a Christian at age 8
wow.
when I joined a particular church compared to where I was born or spent the early years of my life. It was a beautiful experience for me seeing young people and the kind of exposure we had to the word of God and the things we were doing in this my wonderful church in Jos. And as we grew, we faced challenges. I was a very playful child. I
Of
loved to
course.
hang around, play a lot. And gradually I had to start making well-informed decisions. I had to start knowing the difference between the good and the bad. I had to start telling myself, okay, this is why I'm making this decision and this is why I'm not making this decision.
Wow.
I had to start placing values on myself. Were temptations coming around me? Yes, of course they were. In different ways. Yes, I know we didn't have social media when I was a teenager. I think the first time I had a phone was when I was either 16 or 17. And it wasn't even a smartphone. I don't think I had seen a smartphone at that point in my life. So maybe one of the things we would say at that point that a lot of young people would want to use to show off, not even so much about clothes, maybe the kind of TV, the kind of places you visited, those kind of things were there.
Yeah.
But I think every generation go through this whole process of forming their own type of self-esteem. It's it's a very challenging period. And one thing I know about teenagers is that they want to be heard. That is one of the things that I always desired. And the whole idea and the name of Auntie T came from me wanting to be that person that I did not have. I wanted
Wow.
to I wanted to have that open door where young people could really speak and be heard because I didn't think it was very available in my time. I think a lot of those adults that were around us were a bit judgmental, and that would not let a young person be free to really speak. And when they are able to be real and open up to you, then we can now start building from that foundation. You
Yeah.
can now evaluate, oh, is this person going through low self-esteem? Is this person trying to strike a balance? And then we can now walk through the journey together. So it's more like a work in progress with a young person. So in summary, to your question, I would not say so much has changed. I would just say the dynamics have
I've
changed,
changed.
but like we say, God's word is still the same and it still applies in the same way and in different generations.
Wow. Wow. So Auntie T has been a youth and teens mentor most of her life. And it's an amazing one for us, knowing that we have someone that is this intentional about us as young people. So let me move to this question now. I've heard someone say that low self-esteem is a form of pride, right? Like God is trying to do this in your life, but then you feel like you're not worthy of it. So, Auntie T, what would you say about this? How do we differentiate low self-esteem from the one we call pride, and then healthy self-esteem?
I think the definition is a bit tricky, and I'll give you an example. most bullies are actually struggling with self-esteem.
Amazing.
So you see a child who constantly bullies another child because the child is also struggling with his or her own self-esteem.
Wow.
So sometimes some of those things they throw out there is trying to cover the reality of what they themselves are going
Oh,
through.
true,
And
true.
one of the things you can do to a bully is stand up to that bully, because they are also displaying an aspect of their own issues with their self-esteem. And you look into the bully's face and say, I have value for myself and I would not let you treat me this way.
Hmm.
But a lot of young people look at bullies and say, oh, this person has a very high self-esteem. The person is also actually struggling.
Yeah.
And sometimes when young people have issues with their self-esteem, they try to find something to cover it. Some of them want to, that's why you see young people steal, just to portray a particular image of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They
That's
want to
true.
be known for something.
Mm-hmm.
They want to dress in a certain way, even
Yeah.
though they can't afford it. They want to talk big. This is what I can do. This is what I am. This and that. Because they have not been able to value themselves enough. They are actually relying on what other people think of them. So
Wow.
they are also struggling in their
Yeah.
own way. Someone with a balanced self esteem would not really bother so much about what others think,
Mm-hmm.
but will be themselves in the face of the whole journey. Would there be temptations? Yes. Somebody with low self esteem today can have high self esteem in another setting. Somebody with a high self esteem can get to another place and suddenly starts behaving like someone with a low self esteem, because it's still a process. And one thing every young person
Yeah.
should understand is that they are in a process of finding themselves
Mm-hmm.
in different phases. Even as adults, we find ourselves in those kind of places. Sometimes you get to a certain place and you're struggling to really know where you belong. You're trying to, these people seem to be bigger than me because they speak in a certain way, or they are
Yeah.
dressed in a
We find
certain way, they
ourselves in those
look in a certain way.
situations.
But the amount of value we place on ourselves, and as God continues to help us, we're able to strike a balance wherever we find ourselves. And that is extremely important. So you can't completely categorize a young person and say, oh, this person has a high self esteem, even to the extent of maybe this person is very proud, or this person has a very low self esteem. But depending on where they find themselves, the
Mm,
exposure and the situation at that point in time. So every young person needs to be in a setting of accountability amongst
true.
people that you share common values, people that you can speak with when you're
Yeah.
struggling.
Very important.
It is extremely important. For me, I think every young person needs to have a mentor, needs to have somebody that you can reach out to and
True.
speak with,
True.
because it's a journey that comes with different phases, different choices,
Mm-hmm.
different things. And if possible, you have that relationship with your parents, perfect. You have that relationship with another Christian that your parents trust, a perfect setting. But in some cases, we don't have that available. So, where you can find that accountability, where you can find someone you can speak with and you trust. And that's why having a personal relationship with God is extremely important, because
Extremely.
in the name of finding a mentor, some young people have found themselves in trouble.
True. Very
So
true.
we need to prayerfully know who this person is and trust God to walk through the process.
Well, thank you so much, Auntie T. So I think you've already started mentioning some things that we can do to help our journey towards developing a healthy self-esteem. So can you give us like more practical steps that any young person can take to help in this journey to building a healthy self-esteem?
So I'm going to be speaking as a Christian.
Of course, we are
And
24 carat 100% for Jesus.
yeah, I'm going to be speaking as a Christian. And I believe that as soon as any child starts to read, he should read the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think every young person needs to have a consistent personal relationship with God. And when I say that is you have a consistent Bible reading time, a consistent prayer time, and a consistent setting where you can have healthy, wholesome, godly conversations.
Wow.
And in that part, you get to know God for yourself. Now, what happens is that you're now growing from that foundation that has been established. So when you move from
Yeah.
that foundation that has been established, the choices you're making, the decisions you're making become a daily growth
Mm-hmm.
where you're
Mm-hmm.
discussing your daily choices with God, where you're working from a point of that relationship you've been able to build with God and
Yeah.
working with Him to help you mold yourself. Also, in that setting of accountability, you have people that can put you right. There are times we find ourselves in places where our friends will say, "Oh, that thing you just said is is not good at all." Like you just sounded very proud. Like you didn't have to say that.
Yeah.
And then these are people that they are not saying it to condemn you, but they are saying it to put you at a point of accountability. So, as a young person building your self esteem, as God is laying ideas in your heart, you need to take a step and walk towards it. You need to take time and read godly materials. Some of the things that make people sound less valuable is because they don't even know what to say in some settings.
True.
Knowledge is
True. True.
profitable to direct.
Yes.
The kind of things you feed your mind with is extremely important. What kind of music do you listen to? What kind of books do you read? What kind of people do you listen to?
Mm.
All these things are extremely important as we build as young Christians. So in some way that's what I'm going to say.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Auntie T. And if you have any questions you would like to ask on developing a healthy self-esteem, any question at all, you can drop your questions in the comment section and answers will be provided in subsequent videos. Thank you so much for watching this episode.